Hey guys, welcome back to C is for Creepy.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our third episode.
Yeah, so this week we're going to be covering C cases, but I think first Kourtney wanted to do a little shout out.
Yes, so we got some of the numbers and we're so excited to see that we have listeners in the United States and in Belgium. Like, that is wicked. So,
Woo, go Belgium!
yeah, go Belgium, go the States, and thank you to everyone in Canada that listened. It's so great to see all of the support.
It's wonderful. I'm actually over the moon over the amount of support we've been getting.
Yeah, it's great. So once again, thank you guys so much. Go Belgium, go the States. You guys are great.
Also go Canada.
Also go Canada.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to be talking C cases today, or stories, I guess. This week, I'm pairing C with cold case. So, a cold case is a crime or a suspected crime that has not yet been fully resolved and is not the subject of current criminal investigation, but for which new information could emerge from new witness testimony, re-examined archives, new or retained material evidence, or fresh activities of a suspect. And I will admit, I just ripped that from Wikipedia. Okay, so advances in DNA testing has helped close a number of cases. Criminal cases labeled as cold can be so for a few different reasons. Crimes that don't generally have a statute of limitations but remain unsolved could be considered cold. Cases where a suspect has been tried and not convicted will leave the case open as well. So here's a fun little Canadian fact. In Canada, it is not a crime for adults to go missing. You can just disappear.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when I heard that.
But you would think that it would be because of all the manpower that would go behind, say, a search party for you. Like, if you just disappeared and didn't tell anybody, I know I would be panicked and I would be like, hey, let's go look for her. Let's make sure, let's make sure she's not dead in a ditch somewhere. So you would think that there would be some repercussions from that aspect.
I totally get that, but there's also victims of domestic violence trying to escape abusers. And if their abuser reports them missing, maybe that person doesn't want to be found. And there should be nothing wrong with needing to escape a situation like that.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So I just thought that was an interesting fact. I didn't realize that was a thing.
Well, I guess how can they prosecute you for going missing?
Yeah, you should just be able to up and live your life. It's no big deal.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So there's also no waiting period to report somebody missing. So there's lots of people that are like, you gotta wait 48 hours, 72 hours. No, if there's something not right, you can report them as soon as you want. If somebody's shows up to work every day at 9 o'clock and one day they don't show up, report them. Within reason, but still.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. You also don't have to be a relative to report somebody missing.
I did know that.
Okay. So, like I said, if your friend or coworker vanishes without reasonable explanation, a report can be made.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to just wait for family. Okay, so I am covering the Highway of Tears today. I had heard a lot about it growing up, but until I started doing research for today's episode, I really didn't know how sinister this highway really was.
This is the highway to Alaska.
No. I'll tell you all about it.
Okay.
Okay. So, I would also like to preface this case that the Highway of Tears has over 40 victims, including bodies being discovered or people going missing while near this highway. Given the amount of time that we have to record, I'm not going to cover every single case, but there is quite a few. I'm just going to be covering a specific time frame and certain very specific cases.
Okay.
Given saying that though, that definitely does not take away from the people that I'm not covering. They are out there, and I just don't want their deaths not to be acknowledged as well. So
yeah, that totally makes sense.
So for people who do not know, The Highway of Tears is a stretch of Highway 16 that runs from Prince George, British Columbia to Prince Rupert, British Columbia. It is a 725-kilometer corridor where many missing and murdered, mostly Indigenous women's remains have been discovered, starting in 1969.
This is such a terrifying road. Like,
Yeah.
every time you go on a road trip, it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Hit me.
So the name Highway of Tears was coined by Florence Niziel during a vigil held in Terrace, BC in 1989. The small reservations of northern BC are isolated and offer minimal economic growth, with unemployment rates being at 92% in some communities. Lack of funding is detrimental to the way people in these communities are able to get around, with lack of transportation forcing many people to have to rely on hitchhiking.
No.
Yes. There's also insufficient cell reception or telecommunication lines in the area. So it's a very isolated part of Canada.
Well, you're in the middle of nowhere. You have forests for kilometers with nothing but one road going in or out.
Yeah. No, or if there is another road, it's a logging road. It's not paved. It's isolated.
Yeah.
So
it's scary.
It is. Well, and that's another reason why this has been a very prime dumping ground, is because of how remote, how there's so many different back roads that people could just come off of. And that's one of the reasons why people think that this particular stretch has been so notorious.
It's a terrifying thought.
It is.
Honestly, this road is what made me, not that I would, but it made me always afraid of other people driving, hitchhiking. Nope. You don't. Well, that and Criminal Minds.
Fair. A huge lack of trust in RCMP, or Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and others in the justice system. This lack of trust stems from consistent abuse and neglect towards the Indigenous people that makes gathering evidence difficult as well. If your police force isn't helping and people don't feel like they can trust them, it's a vicious cycle where it's not being reported or it's not being investigated. So
yeah, with years of the racism, it's
no, it's just an awful cycle that the system now has. It's awful.
I agree.
Yeah. British Columbia has some of the highest rates of unsolved murders of Indigenous women in Canada. And it should be noted that in 2015, the total number of missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada was over 1,200. And that's in 2015. That's the most recent statistic I could find.
7 years ago.
Yes.
Yikes.
Yep. So I'm going to go over some of the victims now. On October 25th, 1969, Gloria Moody was last seen leaving a bar in Williams Lake, British Columbia. Gloria was 27 years old and a mother of 2. She had been traveling with her brother. Her body was found the next day after going missing.
No.
There was evidence she had been sexually assaulted and battered. She died from blood loss from the wounds she had sustained.
No.
Yep. It just goes on. There's so many people on this list.
So are we thinking a serial killer?
We'll get to it.
Okay.
I'll bring it up again. So Micheline Perret was 18 years old and she was from Quebec. She was last seen walking along the Fort St. John and Hudson Hope portion of the highway in British Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
Her body was found August 8th, 1970 near Hudson Hope. She had been sexually assaulted and beaten to death with a blunt weapon.
Yeah.
Which is my least favorite way to think about murders. Blunt force trauma to the head. Ugh.
No. Yeah.
Gail Weyes was last seen hitchhiking in October 1973. She was 19 years old. Her remains were found in a ditch on Highway 5, discovered April 1974.
She wasn't found until spring?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a recurring pattern where like people go missing.
So sad.
Pamela Darlington was 19 years old, living in Kamloops, BC, when she was found murdered in a park, face down in the Thompson River in 1973 of November.
I think I need more alcoholic beverages for this story. Okay.
Yeah, it's a dark. This is dark. Yeah.
It's sad that like it's still happening.
It is. As recently, like there's some more being solved, but there's been cases as recent as 2021.
Yeah.
With people being dumped there. It's ridiculous, really, is what it is. Monica Ignace was 15 years old, walking home from school along Highway 16 in Thornhill, BC.
She was just a baby.
It was December 1974. Her body was found a few kilometers from where she went missing 4 months later in a wooded area. She had been strangled. Colleen Macmillan was last seen hitchhiking to a friend's house in August 1974. She was 16 years old. Her remains were found a month later, 46 kilometers south from where she disappeared. Monica Jack was 12 years old, last seen riding her bike near Merritt, BC in May 1978. Her body wasn't found until 1995, after forestry workers found her remains in a ravine off a logging route.
That's disgusting.
Oh, it gets worse. She was also sexually assaulted and she had been strangled to death. Maureen Mosey was last seen hitchhiking near Salmon Arm, BC on May 8, 1981. She was 33 years old. Her body was found severely beaten at the end of a runoff lane leading to Highway 97. So, to keep track, that was 8 murders. Mm-hmm. Just straight up murders. And it took 12 years for the police to really gain any sort of attention towards it.
That's disgusting.
Right? So in 1981, referred to as the highway murders, all of the cases involved women that either were last seen or found dead near the highway or other runoff roads in BC. The RCMP decided to hold a conference to investigate these crimes. Around 40 detectives from BC and Alberta attended the conference. While they did notice similarities in the cases, such as vehicles and persons of interest, women continued to go missing or were found murdered. And I've got some more murders for you. I'm very sorry.
Oh my God.
In 1983, Shelley Pascal was 16 years old when she went missing from Hinton, Alberta.
Why are they always children?
She was last seen May 3rd near Highway 16. Her clothes, a library book, and droplets of blood matching her blood type were found near Athabasca River, but she is still missing to this day.
Athabasca?
Yeah.
Is that anywhere close to Hinton?
Okay, I'm actually not too sure.
I Google.
Okay, I'm going to read the next victim.
Okay.
Her name was Alberta Williams, and she was 24 when she disappeared in August 1989. She had last been seen by her sister outside a bar when she vanished. Her body was found near Prince Rupert. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Delphine Nicol went missing June 14th, 1990. She was 16 years old and last seen hitchhiking between Smithers and her home of Tolkwa, BC.
Okay, sorry. Athabasca River is close to Highway 16, but it's a hike from Hinton.
Oof. The fact that they were searching that far out and they were still able to find just that items. Pretty much. Ugh. In 1994, Ramona Wilson was 16 years old when she was last seen hitchhiking to a friend's house June 11th. Her body was found April 1995 near the Smithers Airport.
That's horrendous.
Yep.
The fact that it's taking so long to find the bodies, if they even find them.
Well, that's, like I said at the beginning, that's one of the reasons why people think that this is such a prime area for serial killers. More than one.
Oh,
to
definitely.
Operate.
Well, the same killers, I guess there is chances, but it sounds like one man chooses strangulation while the other chooses blunt force trauma.
Yeah.
Why after the 2000s, when this started becoming, not even before that, did this not become like a actually patrolled area? I'm gonna be honest with you, like, we've driven this horrible road, I think, quite a few times, and once you pass Jasper, there's not a whole lot going on. There's no cops, there's no RCMP, there's nothing, and you're just in a desolate area where your radio doesn't even work.
Yeah. No, it's
atrocious. Why is this not like a thing that there's just constant patrol on the road?
so I'm gonna touch on that later, but I totally agree with you. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous.
Or maybe it is a cop that's picking these people up.
You never know. I mean, really, you never know.
Well, think about it. Like, if you're hitchhiking and you know you're on the highway of tears, you're not going to get in a car with some person that, like, looks sketchy.
So I agree with you, but also, like, just thinking about the area with that distrust between police and Indigenous people,
They might not even get in the police
I
car.
wouldn't. I
This is
wouldn't
true.
risk that. Not even a chance of it.
Oh, man, that's horrible.
It is.
It's just horrible on all sides.
Actually, I was watching a documentary for the case that I'm covering called Highway of Tears, and it was directed by Matt Smiley. Did an awesome job. Nathan Fillion actually narrated it. It was super good.
Good
Like, one of
hometown
the-
boy.
Right? So one of the women in there was like, yeah, when you're hitchhiking, you always go to the truck stops. Those guys are the most trustworthy. So I mean, like, it's just a part of life for them. Like, if you don't have a vehicle, what are your options? It's hours to get from your community to the university if you're going to school. And lots of the school even know, like, oh, these people come in by hitchhiking. It's insane.
Like, you just chose the wrong truck.
I know.
That's awful.
right?
You would think that there would be some funding or something to, like, especially for these little kids, like 12. Why was a 12-year-old hitchhiking?
She wasn't hitchhiking.
She was riding a bike.
She was riding a bike, and like her family saw her, and then she was gone.
That makes my skin crawl. Okay.
Okay. So
I'm physically upset.
I've got a few more to go.
Oh my god. Okay.
I've got a few more to go. And like I said, this is just some of them.
I think you're gonna need to go into like a deeper dive on this.
Oh, I
as
will
like
definitely
a bonus episode.
I will definitely be covering more to it. It's just like I said, with the time that we have, I will definitely be coming back to this because I am just so filled with rage over this.
Yeah.
So Roxanne Thiera was 15 when she vanished November 1994 from Prince George. She had been working as a prostitute and told a friend that she was meeting a client.
Oh my god.
Her body was found near Burns Lake off Highway 16, and she had been stabbed to death. And I don't like the phrase working as a prostitute, but I couldn't find out like any other way to phrase it.
A lady of the night.
She's 15. Like, she's doing it to survive. So, like, I don't know how else to word it.
There is no better way to word that.
Yeah.
It's all bad.
Alicia Germain was also 15 years old when her body was discovered near an elementary school close to Highway 16 on December 9th, 1994.
If they ever find these people, they deserve to be strung up by their toes and just baked in the sun forever. That should be their punishment.
Yeah.
You starve to death with sunburn.
Oh, man. No, it's awful. She had been attending a Christmas party for street kids and had told a youth worker she had to leave briefly but would come right back. And she was found hours later by some other teenagers. And she also had been stabbed to death. Lana Derrick was from Ginatow Band in British Columbia. She was 19 years old when she was last seen. So in this one, the reports do differ. Some people say that, she was seen by a gas station, but her family is pretty sure that's not true. They think the last person to see her was her friend while she was at her house, but she's never been seen again. And that was October 7th, 1995. In 2002, Nicole Hoare was from Red Deer, Alberta, and she was working as a tree planter in Prince George. At 25 years old, She was last seen hitchhiking west towards Smithers on June 21st, and she was super close with her family. She called them all the time, but
That was 2 years ago.
2002
2002.
was not 2 years ago.
Oh,
It feels like it was, but it
sorry. I
wasn't.
thought you said 1995.
No.
Or she was born in 19. I don't know.
No, she was 24 years old in 2002.
I'm just frazzled at this whole story.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's awful. I've only got a couple more. Tamara Chipman was a mother, and she was 25 years old when she went missing, September 21st, 2005. She was last seen hitchhiking by a friend of her father's. And this one's really, really sad because, like, her parents had split up and they lived in different towns. And
she
her
was hitchhiking to one of the parents.
well, like, I don't know exactly where she was hitchhiking to, but because her father was a fisherman, they didn't talk for months at a time. So he thought that she was with her mother. She thought that she was with her father, and she was gone.
Missing.
She was missing. So she wasn't reported missing for months until months after anybody noticed.
And did they ever find her?
No, she was not ever found.
Oh.
Yeah. So the last one, in 2006, Aliyah Sariq Auger was 14 years old, and she was a student, last seen by her family on February 2nd. Her body was found February 10th in a ditch along Highway 16, approximately 15 kilometers east from Prince George. So, due to the common nature between three of the victims, Alicia Germain, Ramona Wilson, and Roxanne Thiera, BC's RCMP Unsolved Homicide Unit created a special project. It's called the IPANA Project. Fall of 2006, IPANA came up with the criteria needed for the missing women to be included in their investigation.
I'm sorry. There's a criteria
Oh, there sure is.
for you to be deemed a victim of the Highway of Tears?
Well, not to be a victim of the Highway of Tears, but for the IPANA Project to investigate your disappearance or murder.
The fuck is that? Okay.
Yep. So the criteria were they were either involved in high-risk behavior, such as hitchhiking or prostitution.
Okay.
They were either last seen or their bodies were discovered within 1 mile of Highway 16.
Okay.
And number 3, they were women. So those are the three. Those are the three things you needed to be investigated with the IPANA. Okay.
But I feel like there's so many variables.
Well, their original list only identified 9 victims, and but one of them was Indigenous. Just throwing that out there. After increasing the geographical area under investigation from 724 kilometers to 1,500 kilometers, and then RCMP also used a software program called VICLAS, which stands for Violent Crime Linkage Analysis System. It doubled the victims to the IPANA, going from the original 9 to the 18 that I just covered. Like, those are all of the victims being investigated with IPANA.
So there's so many more.
So many more, and there hasn't been any victims added to IPANA since 2007.
2007.
Yeah, there hasn't been. Aliyah Sariq Auger was the last person added to the investigation for IPANA in 2006.
But the last body found, or the last murder victim, was last year.
Yep. Okay, so enough was enough. On March 30th, 2006, the families and communities of all the missing and murdered women organized an awareness walk from Prince Rupert to Prince George.
Good for them.
Yeah, as the walk ended, it signaled the start to a 2006 Highway of Tears symposium with over 500 people in attendance. This included community leaders, victims' families, RCMP, and members in various government positions. They addressed the changes that needed to happen to keep the vulnerable members of the community safe.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
Good for them.
Yeah. No, it's awesome, like, that the communities were able to come together and, like, really address this on such a large scale. because individually they weren't getting anywhere.
No, but like their women and children were at risk. Like something had to give, and apparently the RCMP was doing sweet fuck all.
So some changes included victim prevention, emergency planning and team response, victim family counseling and support, and then community development and support.
That's amazing.
So some things that would be hugely beneficial to the community would be improving public transportation along Highway 16, increasing access to phones or having cell reception, and increasing police patrol, just to name a few of the 33 suggestions. Like, they came up with a book. They're like, these 33 things would greatly improve our communities and the safety of our vulnerable members.
Considering that it is blatantly obvious that there's at least 3 serial killers here. Okay.
So unfortunately, at the time, the budget wasn't there to improve the safety of these communities.
It wasn't.
Yeah. I know that I'm covering cold cases, but for the EPANA group, there was some cases that were resolved. In 2012, EPANA ran DNA found on Colleen Macmillan, and there was a match. Yeah. A transient American known as Bobby Jack Fowler was charged with multiple counts of sexual assault, attempted murder, and firearm offenses, just to name a few.
But was he charged with her murder?
They found his DNA on her body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, Fowler died in the Oregon State Penitentiary.
Was it for killing children?
No, just on like different charges.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but he died May of 2006, 6 years before he would be tied to Colleen's murder. Although not confirmed, Fowler is also thought by some to be responsible for the deaths of Gail Ways and Pamela Darlington.
Okay.
Yeah. So another conclusion came for one of the murdered girls' families. In 2019, Gary Hanlon confessed to the murder of Monica Jack and another girl, but like not a part of the Highway of Tears. She was a 11-year-old girl named Kathleen Mary Herbert.
Why the children?
Oh no. The confession was taken by police during a, quote, Mr. Big Sting, unquote. It's a tactic used by RCMP to obtain confessions by convincing criminals that they are talking to a crime boss. Which I thought was a very interesting way to get a confession.
Okay.
Hanlon is currently serving a life sentence for Monica's murder.
Good.
Yeah.
Like, not good, because, like, she did not deserve to die, but at least they found him.
So, while EPANA does have crossover into the Highway of Tears, these are not all the victims, like we've addressed. There are still many missing or murdered women who have last been seen along this highway. Some of these women do have justice, not every case there is a cold case, but way too many of them are. Way too many of them.
No kidding.
So, this one kind of made me rage a little bit. While the RCMP website for Project EPANA said that there is no such thing as a cold case, the last update on their site was 2016.
They're a cold case.
Also, a 2014 Freedom of Information request stated that the task force had dropped from 70 officers to 12 officers in 2010.
Oh, budget cuts, hey?
Huge budget cuts.
So, I think my next question here is there any First Nation voices on that task force?
I'm not entirely sure. I know that there's also private investigators that have been hired or like that have volunteered their time to work on these cases. But I do not know about the Indigenous working right in the task force. I know that they've done all their interviews and stuff with the communities, but I don't know about that. Okay. So it seems that the only way to get the many cases of these murdered and missing women investigated is by constant pressure of the families and communities even now. So That said, there has been some improvements to the safety on the Highway of Tears in recent years. In May of 2021, the Government of Canada, along with the BC government and Rogers Communications, has committed to putting 12 cell phone towers along the highway.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's something they didn't have a projection for when that will be completed, but it's a start.
That's really good because speaking firsthand, when you go an hour on some desolate road in the middle of nowhere with no cell phone, no radio, no nothing, it is scary.
Mm-hmm.
And like eventually you're just like, hey, I need a bar. I need a bar. Somebody give me some cellular reception, please. I'm going to die out here.
Yes, absolutely. In 2016, both the provincial and federal government collaborated to create a bus service along Highway 16, and the government's also extended the funding for this bus service after the Greyhound closed down its service in 2018.
Okay.
It only extended it for another year, and the article I found was from 2020, so I don't know if that's continuing, if there's still funding being allocated for the bus service. I sincerely hope there is. Also, the Government of Canada has delivered on its promise to have an inquiry on missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada. So from 2016 to 2018, the Government of Canada did an in-depth study on the issues the communities have faced and have allocated funds for health and support of services to victims' families. They support a national oversight to the RCMP, and they support a review of the police policies and practices, and they are aiming to commemorate the lives and legacies of the Indigenous women. So that was from 2018, and then when did we start with the children, with the residential children graves?
2021.
Yes. So the government still has a very, very long way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's now some accountability for these RCMP that are investigating these missing women and missing children. That it's not just, your local authorities. You actually have to show that you are putting in effort.
Yes.
And I hope that it gets better.
I hope so too. I truly do. Like, these families deserve some closure.
Absolutely.
And people should be able to go from community to community without feeling like it's a risk every single time.
You should be able to ride your damn bike in front of your parents.
Right? Absolutely, you should.
It's horrendous.
Okay, so while this is a start, a vast majority of cases that have taken place along the highway remain unsolved. And this quote really hurts, but it has been quoted by an RCMP staff member of EPANA that I've been honest with our victims' families, and I say perhaps they'll never be solved. It was also in that documentary I told you about. So it was a 2015 documentary named Highway of Tears that they report that the Wilson family has been told that they have stopped investigating Ramona Wilson's death due to a lack of leads. So from going from there's no such thing as a cold case to saying that they've stopped investigating, I have a really hard time with that. And when I read that, it just made me so angry.
Yeah. You have a missing person.
Yeah. They deserve to have their story told. They deserve to have those, they deserve an ending, like a finale. They deserve closure.
Oh, 100%. I really wish that Canada would set aside enough money to maybe send in search teams into the forest. Go in and look more than 10 kilometers off the road.
Well, and it's not in my notes, but it's really it blew my mind. But when one of the girls, when Nicole Hoare went missing, she was a Caucasian female, and it was her parents that had the funding that privately paid for billboards that were trying to get the word out there. And that's what got the news on this situation, when this has been going on for decades prior, that these Indigenous women were going missing.
That's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. No. It makes me so mad. The RCMP are still taking tips regarding the Highway of Tears cases. So if anybody knows anything, the number to call is 1-877-543-4822. And if you do know something, please give it a call. Those families deserve it. The women that went missing deserve it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a quick question though. Is there any men that go missing?
There are men that go well, there's men that go missing. There's also men whose bodies have been dumped along the highway as well. And from like the quick glance that I did, it seemed like some of those were solved, but it's mostly women or girls that go missing from what I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like I would be interested to see those numbers of how many people just straight up go missing off of that road.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm really glad that I finally looked into it, because like I had heard about it for years, but I did not know the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, I'd be super interested to hear more about it.
Yeah.
We might need to, have a lot more wine on hand because this is very deep.
Yeah.
But that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that was quite the story, Elyse.
It was very dark.
So, I have another story for you. My C is for Cameron Park of Waco, Texas.
Ooh, I've never heard of this.
I actually didn't either until I was looking for a C, and there was quite a few that I could have picked from, but this one seemed like a good one.
Okay, I'm excited.
Yeah, so I couldn't find a whole lot of background on it because it is a public park.
Okay.
But Cameron Park is an urban park located in Waco, Texas. It sits on 416 acres of land and was thought to be germinated in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when the land was abandoned and the trees, shrubs, and wildlife started to sprout, creating the park.
Ooh.
The park was dedicated on May 27th of 1910 and named in memory of Waco philanthropist and lumber baron William Cameron.
Oh, to be a lumber baron in the in 1910?
You'd be loaded.
Oh my God, that's the life.
Yeah. His wife probably just lived her best life.
Yeah, she wanted for nothing.
Yeah. With the old twisting trees, occasional mist, smell of decay, and nocturnal mischief, Cameron Park is an eerie location. There are quite a few stories that have been passed down through the generations of the park's users about the century-old parkland. It is no wonder that this park is eerie, especially during the witching hour.
Ooh.
So, our first story is called Lindsay Hollow.
Okay.
One of the oldest Cameron Park legend on file at the Texas Collections is the story of Lindsay Hollow Road. One story goes, at the end of the Civil War, local ranchers captured two cattle thieves, the Lindsay brothers, by chasing them through what is now known as Lindsay Hollow. Both brothers were slain by the vigilantes, afraid of the repercussions if the townfolk were to find out about their execution. The vigilantes buried the cattle thieves on site. This story doesn't outline exactly how they met their demise, but the unsettled spirits are said to haunt the area.
Ooh. I hate that. Like, you've already tried to steal some cattle. Just be at peace. Like, move on. Just move on.
You lost the battle.
Yeah, just give it up.
Yeah. The second story goes, in the late 1800s, a couple of men stole some horses.
Okay, so cows and then horses. Is this just a thief park?
It's the same two guys.
Oh.
It's just two different versions of the story.
I see. That makes more sense.
Yeah. They were captured and hanged from a tree on Lindsay Hollow Road in Cameron Park. There are accounts of people who drive along or walk along Lindsay Hollow and see their bodies hanging from the trees.
Oh, jeez. Oh, I don't like that. I really don't like that. Especially like in a misty forest park
Hard
area.
pass. Mm-mm. Hard pass. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Yeah. I couldn't imagine. But again, if I was that ghost and I was salty about being hanged, I would do the same thing.
Well, and like I guess it depends on the type of ghost, right? Like there's like the residual hauntings and just like the spooky ooky haunted, like the ghosts that are sentient,
Yeah.
that know what they're doing. So maybe it's just like a residual one. Maybe he's like, I was hanged and I will always hang.
Maybe. I'd like to think that I would be the spiteful.
Oh, you would.
Life goals.
I love it.
End of life goals.
I love that.
Okay, so our next story is The Witch's Castle.
Oh, okay. I really want a witch's castle.
Same.
I would love that.
Same.
So
like,
much.
I would just be the ghost hanging from trees in my witch's castle. Like, I would love to just live here.
Yes.
As a ghosty toasty.
Oh, you know what? Even as a human, probably. I would be okay with living in my own well, okay. You made a face. Uh-oh.
I think I'd want to be dead first.
Okay, let's hear it before I say too much.
So the witch's castle, there are several versions of the witch at the black heart of the story.
Uh-oh.
In some stories, she's merely a reclusive old woman who tended to rely on home remedies or natural potions for curing illness.
Nice. Okay, that
Like you.
like me.
In the woods.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No matter the story, the remnants of the castle are enough to give anyone the chills. Marked by the decrepit remnants of a stone archway and the remains of a house, the area is said to reek of decaying flesh, screams, gasps, and banging noises.
Okay, you almost had me until the smell of rotting flesh. Then you lost me. Oof.
Yeah.
No longer my ideal property. Ugh. Gotta
hard
keep
pass.
looking.
So, some more wild versions of this story.
Yes.
The first one. One telling, the witch, she's a half First Nation mother who lost her only son to the cannons of World War I and went insane. Park visitors claim to hear mad chanting and screams in the area of the ruins of an old stone structure.
Oh my god.
Second version. The darkest version of the story casts the witch as a Satan worshipper who sacrificed her own children to the devil before joining them in hell.
That seems a little dramatic.
A little.
A little dramatic.
Oh. Third version. Takes place in the late 1800s or early 1900s. A woman people suspected of witchcraft lived in the woods of Cameron Park. People went missing in the woods. Residents of Waco believed the woman was the cause of the disappearances. They formed a mob and burned the woman's house down while she was still inside.
Oh.
Her spirit is said to roam the woods looking for more souls to steal.
Okay, but do you blame her? Because I don't. You burned my house with me in it?
Again, I'd be a vengeful spirit.
Yes.
But we all knew that. Fourth version involves a woman and a boy. The boy would invite his little friends over to his house, and every time the boy's friend would go missing. Supposedly, the boy was murdering his friends and hiding the bodies in Cameron Park. People took notice but blamed the woman, who they suspected was a witch. A mob burned her house down, but the boy was never found.
Okay, that seems a little typical. Like, boy doing it, mom takes the fall. Blame the woman. The woman's the witch. Classic.
Didn't you know men can't be witches, Elyse?
No.
It's always the woman.
No, apparently. Jeez. Ugh.
Yeah. So, the final version focuses on a woman, quote unquote, witch, wandering the woods, and in some cases, chasing after a person in the woods of Cameron Park. The story goes that Cameron Park witch was actually a Victorian nanny to the Cameron children before the park was dedicated. The Cameron family owned it, but while they owned it, vagrants would camp on the property. When the Cameron children would play in the forest, the nanny would go along with them, and if they encountered a vagrant trespassing, the nanny would chase off the intruders of the land. To shoo them away, she would use a switch. Again. Woman after my own heart. Legend is she was probably called the witch while she was still living. She fell sick and died quickly. Legend says the bums and vagrants still see her ghost walking through the park chasing after them.
Okay, but like, just get out of her park. Like, it's that, okay, one time, that's all it would take, is one time me being chased by a woman, like a ghost with a switch, and I would never stay another night in that park again.
Right? She'd fetch a switch. In some cases, she would look frantic like she lost the children, and she would attack the person thinking they had kidnapped them.
Oh. Yeah. You wouldn't stay there twice.
No. In the winter, she would be carrying a lantern, crying out for them, and whenever she came across you, she would beat you with a switch or knock you senseless.
Oh my.
So, I have an actual account
Oh
from
my
someone.
God. I'm so excited.
So, Stephen O'Burney of Waco, his account of the witch's castle. The first time O'Burney went to the witch's castle was during his sophomore year at Baylor. You go through the gates. You can't drive your car because the gate is actually closed, but you can walk through it. Eventually you'll go down there and you'll see some ruins. There is no actual house, he said. You'll see the walls and you walk around. You'll see these areas that actually still have crumbling walls in place. On his first trip, he and his friends encountered something unusual around the witching hour. We went there around 2:30 a.m. We were just running around the trails, just kind of looking around, he said. It was a pretty still night, and suddenly the wind picked up out of nowhere. It started blowing hard, and someone asked what time it was. I flipped open my phone, and it was 3 a.m. exactly. He and his friends quickly left the area. We didn't see any witches, nothing out of the ordinary, he said. It's just kind of a spooky place.
Okay. I love the aesthetic though of the crumbly building with like the wind and the leaves and the eerie. I love that thought, especially at the witching hour. I can definitely understand why he would be creeped out because I would be losing my shit, but
Right?
I also kind of love it.
I would totally do that.
Kind of love it.
Yeah, totally. Okay, we got 2 more stories.
Yeah.
So we got the Lover's Leap.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. A limestone rock formation called Lover's Leap overlooks the Bosque River and is the stage upon which one of the greatest melodramas of Waco's history is cast. 2 similar stories come from this tale. First tale. The story goes that 2 young Native Americans from enemy tribes fell in love. They found themselves cornered by vengeful tribesmen and kinfolk on the limestone cliffs. Rather than live without each other, they embraced in a death pact and jumped to their deaths. Legend has it, the pair can be glimpsed off the cliff when the Bosque River is running above its banks and their romantic murmuring in the rush of its water.
Aww. That's so sad.
The second tale. Lover's Leap story in 1912, the original can be found as part of the Texas collection. In this version of the tale, Wawati, the daughter of the chief of the Wacos, fell in love with an Apache man. As the Apaches are threatening an attack on Wawati, she goes to meet her lover, but a member of her tribe followed her. Wawati's spy tells her father about the rendezvous. Her father and brother goes to kill the Apache man, but before they could kill him, the Apache and Wawati embrace and jump off the cliff. The cliff is now known as the Lover's Leap. When the moon and river is full, the figures of the 2 can be seen on the cliff.
Aw. Either way, I knew Lover's Leap would be sad. Either way.
But at least they're still together.
I mean, I guess, but still.
Very sad.
Very sad.
Oh, I was wrong. Now there's 2 more stories.
Yay!
The motorcycle tar pits.
Okay.
This more modern legend originated less than 40 years ago. The motorcycle tar pits trailed downhill from Lover's Leap and were a popular area for jumping motorcycles in the 1970s. The origin of one ghost story is that a young man was killed riding his bike at the pits. His bereaved mother came every day to the site to mourn her son's death. Even after her own death decades later, she continued to visit. People report hearing racing engines and a woman weeping. Some also say they see orbs moving through the trees near the cursed spot.
Oh, those orbs are kind of freaky. Especially like if there's no like film photography going on, or like, it's outside in the woods, that's especially creepy.
Right?
Ugh. But I feel bad for the mother weeping. Like,
It's sad.
it is. Oh,
This one will give you a giggle.
yay.
Jacob's Ladder. Jacob's Ladder, one of the park's greatest attractions, is an extremely steep set of steps climbing nearly 100 feet to the top of a cliff. Supposedly built more than a century ago by a family living at the top of the cliff, the aged structure is still usable because of its periodic renovations. Like, that family knew what was up.
Yeah. Especially, carving that stone.
Oh no, it's wood steps. They just didn't
Still.
want to have to go downhill.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I'd rather climb 1,000 steps than try and like climb up a steep hill with trees in the way.
Just roll down the hill at that point. Yep.
Yeah, you'll see the photos.
Oh, I'm excited to see them.
Yeah. So, the ghost activity dates to the 1980s. According to the stories, if a couple climbs the ladder after dark, it is said they will sometimes feel invisible hands pulling at their clothes.
Ew.
The woman is usually the first to feel tugs of the grabbing ghost.
Of course they are. Jeez. Oh God, that's so disgusting. That is just so. What is with you and stories about stuff being yanked or pulled or grabbed? Oh, just do your ghost thing. Just stop touching me or my possessions.
Those are some of the best ghost stories, though.
I mean, I love hearing them, but I would die. I would just die on the spot if I experienced that.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of my references I did use was the wacotribe.com, baylorlariat.com, and of course the good old Wikipedia.
Love a good old Wikipedia.
What a roller coaster tonight.
It was it was quite the roller coaster.
Sorry, you can hear my dog in the background.
Yeah, no, so I'm really glad you were able to lighten it up at the end there, because I really needed that after my case.
Oh, for sure. The grabbing ghost.
Yeah, well, not that, but, I enjoyed some of it.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yes, thank you so much. You'll have to check us out next week to hear Dee's stories. And I also want to mention before we end the show, I know that we've got our little spiel at the end where you can find us on Instagram and everything like that. But if you don't mind, if you do enjoy the show, would you please rate and review it? Because that'll just help us get some more boosts on the different Apple podcast ratings. It'll get our name out there a little bit more. And if you enjoy it, we'd love to hear your feedback.
For sure. Some 5-star reviews are always loved.
Very much so. Okay, thanks for listening.
Thanks.